Good morning. It's February 2nd, 2016, 10:04 a.m., and I'm revamping an old site that I threw together. The only thing this web page here has is over here on the left, we've got some links to different web pages about carbon nanotubes. And over here on the right, with the tan background, is an iframe. Now this originally had two iframes, and this right here is the code for the page that you're looking at. I originally had two iframes, and how my list items that actually had the links inside of the list items had the li on click equals style.background color equals white. That means when I click on this, it stays white and it opens the page up here. But what it did is it took the link, here's the opening link tag, and it set it to the web page. It targeted it to an iframe that I gave the name of TV. On click event, this.style.color equals black. That just basically keeps my link black. It doesn't change different colors because sometimes a browser will have a setting that will turn your click to link blue or purple or red or something. And I wanted to keep it black. But after that statement, I had a secondary statement in the beginning of the link tag that says window.sb.location.ref, and the SB was a second iframe and it was named SB. So I had an iframe named TV and another iframe named SB. And what that did was that opened up an HTML page that I was using. I had called it 2 sound or 1 sound or 3 sound, so on and so forth, that basically just opened up a media player code, like an embedded media player. Well, I'm using audio tags now, so I wound up changing everything. So instead of using this type of code, oh, also, there's the beginning of the, from here to here is the beginning of the aref, which is the beginning of the link tag, and then all this, and here is the ending of it, the /a, and then everything in between is what you see that you actually can click on. These B tags right here is a tag that I created to bold this 542. That basically, that's right here, that's the second one. That is the time, the length of the snippet that I read. But there's the end of the aref, so there's the end of that link, and there's the end of the li. So I'm not going to do it like that anymore for this. My revamp is this right here. That's the beginning of the UL. That's the UL tag, and all these other LI tags go all the way to there. And there's the iframe that I kept. So I erased the iframe that was on there before because I had a small iframe on top and the bigger iframe on bottom. The top opened up the audio file and the bottom opened up the web page. But I only have the iframe with the ID of TV and name of TV and height of 80% at this point. I can change that height. Now that I don't have two different iframes, I could change that and get more iframe height. That's no problem. And a body, end of HTML, and all this is just a reminder of how to do the code if I want to go back to the two iframe method. But let me show you. I might as well start at the top and just show you the styles too for the heck of it. Here's my opening HTML tag, my opening head tag. This right here lets me put an image up here in the tab. Link rel equals shortcut icon, href equals nanotube.jpg, type equals image /x icon, and then right after that is my title, CNT in the human body, and you see that right next to this image. It's kind of hard to tell what that is. It's like a diagonal shape, but it's that's the linked image, and here's the title, CNT in the human body. Now all of this from this purple tag all the way down to this which finishes up the head, is just the styles for this particular page. The styles of this greenish color and the tan in the iframe and so on and so forth. So my style for the body of this page is margin 0, padding 0, font size 0.75 em. So it's 75% of what the normal browser font size is, just a little bit smaller than what the browser would set it to naturally. My UL, my unordered list, is the UL, remember, nests, the UL is unordered list, and inside the unordered list tag you have a variety of LIs. So if I go back here into the body again, you see here's the opening UL tag, and then here's a big long list item. Here's another big long list item, and you just keep going until you get to the end. You don't have any more list items, then you have the ending UL tag. Okay, so I have a style for the UL and for the LI. For the unordered list itself, I gave it a margin left of negative 35 pixels because I wanted all of these navigation items in the unordered list to butt up to the right of the window. I didn't want it to have a gap. I didn't want it to move over. Normally list items tab over a little bit, so you have a little bit of gap, and I didn't want a gap. So I set the margin left to a negative number. Text align right so that my list items here all line up to the right of the list item element itself. List style type I have set to none, and margin top of 0 pixels so that it butts up to the top. Then for my list item, each list item itself, each of these greenish colors, I have a height of 55 pixels so that every single one of these is uniform. I could go a little higher because if you look at this second one right here, it's kind of the 542 time here is kind of butting up to the bottom. So maybe I'll take that 55 and just up it to 60 pixels and refresh the page. That makes it a little bit better. So that'll be okay. Font family Arial. Background color pound 3cc, and border 5 pixels of silver outset, padding of 10 pixels, width of 18%, because I want each of these list items to, as you stretch the page, I gave it a percent because I want it to get bigger as the window gets bigger, and I want it to get smaller as the window gets smaller. So I gave it a percent instead of a static width. And it's so funny how I drag this and then I lose control of it. Border radius, I use those three things to give me a shadow. Well, border radius actually is 20 pixels so that it has a rounded corner. But then here, this WebKit box shadow of 2 pixels, 0 pixels, 30 pixels, 15 pixels, RGBA value of 000, 0.75. And then here's another statement that does the exact same thing. And here's a third statement that does the exact same thing. It's just each of those three statements, I guess, is to make sure whether you're running Firefox or Opera or Safari or a different browser that you'll get your shadow. I don't know what to say about Internet Explorer. I don't even bother looking at it anymore because it doesn't do the same thing all the rest of the browsers do. Then for my iframe, which is this with a tan background, I gave it a position of fixed, top of 0 pixels, right of 5 pixels, width of 72%, again, so that when I open the window or minimize, not minimize, but make the window smaller, this iframe will stretch so that it'll be a more liquid layout. Background color tan, border 15 pixels of pound cc ridge. So that pound 3cc is actually giving us this bluish greenish aqua type of color for both the list items and for the border of the iframe. Then I've got an LI hover, a list item hover event, which as you see as my mouse hovers over this, I have a background color of white and color of black so that it doesn't change any colors. I want it to maintain the black color. Finally, I have a link color black and a visited color black. Again, my links right here, when I click them or hover over them, or if it's whether it's visited or if it's just active, I just wanted it to stay black. I didn't want them to turn colors. Sometimes when you set all of the different possibilities for your AREF link, whether you're hovering or whether you clicked on it or not, sometimes it looks a little too busy. I mean, sometimes it's a nice effect to have, but sometimes it just makes your web page look gaudy or busy. Then I set a B tag, font weight bolder and color black. If I change this to, for a second, to color lime and refresh the page, you see what changed was the time that each one of these web pages was read. It took 19 minutes to read this, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, and some odd seconds for all the rest of those. And the problem that I had with what color I wanted is because it had to be a good contrast with both this kind of aqua-ish color, and when you click on it and it stays white, I wanted it to still have a decent background color. So I toyed with different colors and didn't like any of them, so I just kept it to black and just left it alone. But I keep the code here in case I want to mess with the color in the future, because maybe I'll change this color, the background color, instead of it being this greenish bluish color. If it's a lighter color or a darker color, then when I change this B tag that I'm using to bold the text, maybe I could change it to a different color. Instead of having type in color all over again, it'll already be here, and all I have to do is just change the color itself that I set it to. So those are all the styles that I have for this page, the page that has the navigation and the iframe. So there's the end of the head, the beginning of the body. So now in the body we're going to go over the actual elements that you see, that you physically see. There's the first UL tag, the opening UL tag that I told you. You don't actually see a UL, but it nests the LI. UL means unordered list, OL means ordered list. Oh, my first link, this is how I changed it. Instead of having, remember I said instead of having 2 iframes, now I only have 1. And what this does is I still have the LI on click equals style.background color equals white. That way when I click on this, I click on it and it stays white. But I gotta stop these real quick. Then after that opening LI tag, I have an AREF link tag. And what it links to is a web page that I named onesound.html. Now, this actually is going to have a page that has these 2 buttons, scroll page, stop scroll, and I use the audio tag, which when the page loads, I have 2 functions in the head inside a script tag. 2 functions. One function starts this page to automatically scroll, and then another function stops the scroll. Now I have a body onLoad event which causes this to automatically scroll. But if I change the body onLoad to just body like this one and just allow the user to click either scroll page or stop scroll, then they can manually hit scroll page when they want instead of clicking the link and having it automatically scroll. So I have both options in this page. And the stop scroll, obviously you see it stops the scroll, and if you hit scroll page again it resumes. And stop, scroll, stop. And then this audio tag right here, you click it to hear it, and then it's automatically got the pause control within the audio tag itself. So let me show you the page and the code to this page. It's called onesound.html, and I'm going to make, I could just call it one.html to be honest. But no matter what I want to call all of these, every single link right here that I have, I'm going to have to create its own page to do the same thing for each one of these things that I'm reading. So here's onesound.html. If I hit run, launch in Firefox, you'll see the page not opening in the iframe, just the page just opening by itself. It's thinking. Thinking. There we go. Okay, you see,
Wikipedia, carbon nanotubes in medicine. Carbon nanotubes, or CNTs, are very prevalent in today's world of medical research and are being highly
all right,
researched in the field
it's reading, it's automatically reading, and it's automatically scrolling.
monitoring.
If
Carbon
I minimize
nanotubes
this a little
have
bit,
shown to have the potential to alter drug delivery
great, I
and
got two of
biosensing
them.
methods for the better, and thus carbon nanotubes have greatly garnered interest in the field of medicine. The use of CNTs in drug delivery and biosensing technology has the potential to revolutionize medicine.
Where'd
Functional
it go?
fusion of single-wall
There we go.
nanotubes, or
This
SWNTs,
is,
has proven to enhance solubility and allow for efficient
let
tuning
me
and
stop
targeting.
talking and stop scroll. All right, so this is the page called onesound.html. Let me go over the code that gives you this page. Beginning HTML, it's not a very big page. Ending HTML. There's a head. I don't have a style sheet link and I don't have a meta refresh, but the code is here in case I want to use it in the future. But I do have in my head a script tag that has two functions. There's a function called page scroll and there's a function called stop scroll. And they're both put in this opening and closing script tag, two functions in one set of script tags. If we look at function page scroll, we have window.scrollby and in parentheses 0, 1. And I gave myself a note that says horizontal and vertical scroll increments. Then we've got scroll delay equals set timeout, and then in parentheses page scroll, comma, 520. Okay, this was originally, I believe, page scroll, and then instead of 520, it was 100. So my note right here said scrolls every 100 milliseconds. I think because I changed that to 520, I think the note should be scrolls every 520 milliseconds. I could be wrong. But basically, don't worry about the note. This changes the speed. Okay, so if I changed this to 100 again, which I believe that's the code that I started off with, if I lower that number and then run this, it's going to, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to speed the scroll quite a bit.
Wikipedia, carbon nanotubes in medicine.
So the lower the number, the faster the scroll.
CNTs
The higher the number, the slower the
medical
scroll.
research and are being highly researched in the field.
Let me change it to 50 and it should be really fast.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, see, that's pretty fast for a scroll. Now, if you're a speed reader, you might want to set your scroll to a low number, or for whatever reason you're using a scroll, you might want it to be low. Let's try 10 and see how fast that looks. Refresh the page.
Wikipedia, carbon nanotubes in medicine. Carbon nanotubes, or
So that's pretty
CNTs,
fast.
are very prevalent in today's world of medical research.
That's pretty fast. But I want to go back to what I had before because it was nice and slow. 520. And you just basically toy around with your number when you read your page, your lesson, or whatever it is that you're reading, and you want it to scroll, you want the scroll to match the time it takes for you to read the page, just mess around with that number until you get something that seems to work okay for you. One more time. You'll see how much slower it is now.
Nanotubes in medicine.
So that's a very slow scroll. Another thing, this 0 and 1, I have scrolling by one increment. I think the code that I originally got had like 0, a comma 100 or 0, comma 50. Let me show you when I change this number what happens. Do you see how it's scrolling in chunks?
Nanotubes in medicine. Carbon nanotubes, or CNTs,
Instead of a nice smooth scroll, it's scrolling in 100 pixel increments. I believe that's what that means, 100 pixel increments. And I did not want that. Now, I guess if you wanted to do increments and then really change this number, like, I don't know, maybe make it 1,000. Let's see what that does.
Wikipedia.
Yeah, that's still choppy. I don't like that.
Carbon nanotubes, or CNTs, are very prevalent.
But basically, you see how you can screw around with these numbers and change how your page scrolls, how fast or slow it scrolls, and how many increments it scrolls by. I'm going to go back to this window scroll by 0, 100, and scroll delay equals set timeout page scroll, 520.
Wikipedia.
Oh, didn't change.
Wikipedia. Carbon nanotubes.
Oh, that's because I didn't change this back to 1. It's still scrolling by 100 increments of 100. There we go.
Wikipedia.
Now we have a slow,
Nanotubes.
smooth scroll.
Carbon nanotubes, or
All right, enough of that. So there's the function to make the page scroll, and the function to stop the scroll is just clear timeout and then in parentheses scroll delay. So the stop scroll is a very simple function. And there's the end of the script with those two functions. Now there's a style for this page, which isn't really a big deal.
Wikipedia.
Oh, let me get out of here. I've got too many things open. Okay. I don't want to show you the whole page with the navigation. I just want to show you the single page that I'm looking at. I'll launch it in Chrome. See how this background starts off as black? Okay. For this page that you're looking at right here, body is set with background color black, color white, margin 0 pixels, and padding 0 pixels. I have a div called soundbar that I actually have my two buttons. Here's one button, here's the other button, and here's the audio control. So this green scroll page button, this red stop scroll button, and this audio control right here are all in a div called soundbar. And soundbar has this style set to it, position fixed, width 100%, bottom 0 pixels, and padding 0 pixels. I have a control for my audio tag right here, margin bottom negative 10 pixels, and I did set it to a width, but then I changed that, so I'll just take that off. Margin bottom of negative 10 pixels. I had to force this to float down as far down to the bottom as the page is. It didn't want to let me do that. Watch if I take margin bottom off by misspelling it with a Z. Refresh. It's got like its own margin or padding or something, and I wanted it to go all the way to the bottom with my buttons here. So I forced it with a negative margin bottom. See, now it sits at the bottom nice the way I want it to.
Wikipedia, carbon.
All right. I have a iframe, and this is strange. You can't see the iframe because I didn't give it a border. But if I go back into the body again, there's that body on load equals page scroll. If I don't want it to automatically page scroll, then I will just have just this. If I do want it to automatically, then I have to set it like this, because then it calls the page scroll method as soon as the body is loading on load, do this. If I comment that out like that, then it's only going to read body, and the only way this is going to scroll is if I click the scroll page button. So let me refresh this and you'll see. See, now it doesn't automatically scroll. Now it's not going to scroll until you click the button, which probably makes more sense. And another thing that I've got is my audio control right here. Let me give a little space between these buttons and audio control. My audio control, again, all this stuff is in the sound bar. This is for the green button. This is for the red button. This is for the audio control. I have in the beginning audio tag controls and autoplay. If I do not want it to autoplay when the page loads, I just take the word autoplay out of that opening tag. Now if I hit this, see, it's not moving. It's not starting to read. That this way it's only going to do something when the user wants it to. So they come down here and hit the play button, then you can start to hear the audio. If you want to scroll the page, so that puts all of the power on the end user instead of having things auto run. You can choose what you prefer. You want your audio control to automatically read, or you want to make the user click it. Because if the user doesn't want to click it and they don't click it, then they just read this at their leisure. Maybe it aggravates somebody to listen to somebody else read. Maybe they want to read themselves in silence. Maybe they don't want to be distracted with the page scrolling. Or maybe they do. Maybe they don't want to mess with their mouse and they'd rather it scroll. But if it's scrolling too fast or too slow for the actual user's reading ability, that'll be aggravating. So it's good to have a way for the scroll to either scroll or not scroll. Let the user hear if they want to hear someone reading it. If they don't want to read it themselves, they just want to hear it because they're doing something else, want to hear it in the background, and then you have this option for the audio play. If I take controls off of the audio tag, let's see what that does. Save it and refresh the page. Now you have no control over the audio, which of course you would only use that, I suppose, if you had it autoplay, because otherwise they have no way of making the audio play at all. So if they had audio autoplay without the word controls, I can hear myself talk right now, but I can't shut it off. And that's aggravating too. So I don't actually like that. I want the user to have the ability to listen to it or not listen to it if they want. So I'm going to put controls back on. I'm going to take autoplay off. Okay, so now it opens up in silence. Nothing is making any noise, and there's no scrolling until the user wants it to happen. Your page, if you want it to autoplay, then you make it autoplay. If you want it to automatically scroll, then you put your body on load equals page scroll instead of just body. All right. Let's see. I already went through all the styles, the body, everything in the sound bar I just went over. Okay, I don't think I went over the buttons in detail. The first button, input class equals green, type equals button, on click the on-click event for this button is page scroll, which means it's calling the page scroll method that we created up here in the head. This function page scroll with those increments and the speed, it's calling that. The class equals green is a class that I created in the style at the top, dot green, so that I could have the colors green and red to indicate go and stop, scroll page, stop scroll. So each button has its own color. The green class is background color green, border radius 20 pixels, font size 20 pixels, and color white, so that the scroll page text has a better viewability. I mean, when it's black, it's okay, but I liked it better being white. It kind of also went with the player, the audio player, because it has like either, if that's not white, then it's a light gray. So it stands out more. Then I have a class .red for the exact same reason, and the only thing different is the background color is red. It also has a border radius of 20 pixels and a font size of 20 pixels and a color of white. Oh, I think I forgot to tell you about the iframe. I told you why I did the audio margin bottom -10 pixels because I wanted this player to sit flat to the bottom the same way the buttons are. But I don't think I told you about the iframe having a width of 100% and a height of 20,000 pixels. This 20,000 pixels, if I don't set a super large height for the iframe, then it won't auto scroll. So I don't really know what the exact height would be for this to auto scroll until it gets right to the bottom of the page, and then don't worry about it anymore. I would guess that because of my scroll, if you look at my scroll bar, since my scroll bar is about halfway and now I'm at the end, I would guess that it would probably be safe for me to change this 20,000 to a 10,000. Let me see if that does anything different. So now from the top, now see how much further it goes? And it'd probably be safe to say I could take off even a little bit more. So instead of 10,000, maybe 900, 950. Wait. 9,000. Instead of 10,000, let's try 9,500. Save it. All right. Now there's still even more space before we get to the bottom. But not much. Let me try just 9,000 and see what happens with that. Top. Oh, look, it doesn't actually take me all the way. Does not take me all the way, so I have to add a little bit more. So let's try 9,400. See what that does for us. Hmm. 9,300. I don't need this to be perfect. I'm just fiddling with it to see how close I can get. 9,200. Ah, not quite enough because then you get this inner scroll bar. So let me leave it at 9,300 so I don't get an inner scroll bar. Yeah. Okay, so it's a little more than we need, but at least I didn't get that secondary scroll bar. So your iframe, you have to toy with it. You have to open it up and check out your scroll bar and see, because if you don't set that height and the web page is longer than you have the ability for the auto scroll to go down, it won't scroll. So it's important that if you're going to have your page scroll, you you have to make sure that the height coincides with the height of the page. Now, notice when this is scrolling the page, my buttons and my audio are not scrolling too. I want those to remain fixed at the bottom of the page while the rest of this stuff moves. And I was able to do that by putting my buttons and my iframe, I'm sorry, my buttons and my audio, these three elements on the bottom of the page, uh, in this div called soundbar. And because I gave it a position of fixed, and I gave it a width of 100%, a bottom of 0 pixels so that it would all be at the very bottom of the page, and padding of 0 pixels. Being fixed allows that to not scroll with the page. So when you want something to scroll and you want something different to not scroll with the page, you always have to set its position to fixed. Alright, so now I went over that, I went over this, I went over this, and I went over these two button styles. There's my sound bar. It's a div. It just doesn't say div equals sound bar. It just says sound bar opening, the opening sound bar and closing sound bar tags. Again, this is how my green button causes the page to start scrolling. Class equals green, type equals button, on click equals page scroll, value equals scroll page. Value is the text that you see on the face of the button. And here's the red one. Input class equals red, type equals button, on click equals stop scroll. So now it's calling the stop scroll with a value of stop scroll. You see the text stop scroll on it. It's calling the stop scroll function that we created here in these script tags in the head of the HTML. It's calling this right here. So it's taking clear timeout scroll delay and it's stopping the scroll when you click it. Alrighty. Okay, so that's soundbar. That's those three things in this soundbar tag. Here's my iframe. Iframe class equals lower, name equals SB. I didn't use the SB up here for styling purposes. Since I only have one iframe in this page, I just used the tag iframe to style it. And I've got this class called lower that I'm not using either, so I don't need that. I don't even believe that I need name SB or ID of SB because I'm not using that either. But I do need my source. Source equals, and then you have the address of the Wikipedia website right there. It's the address. Well, you can't see the address up here because this is being opened up in an iframe. But down here, this is the address. Scrolling equals yes, and frame border equals 0, and then there's the end of the iframe tag. So let's try to run it again now that I took the ID and name off. It still works. See, if you use the ID and the name for other functionality or other code, whether it's to style it or to use it in some other JavaScript or something, or as a target for a link to target other stuff into, then you want to use the ID and the name. But in this situation, I don't need the ID and the name. I just need the source. I need it to be able to scroll, and I gave it a no frame border. Very, just very simple iframe that's opening up this web page. So that's one sound.html with the scrollability and the audio. For me to do the same thing to the second one, I would take this list item, move all this down, right click and paste. Okay, all this stuff underneath I'm not worried about right now because all of this is code when I used 2 iframes. So I really don't want to be looking at that right now. So I'll just take all those list items out by commenting them. What that does is if I open up the OpenCNT embodied.html, what happens is all of these list items that I commented out are going to disappear when I hit refresh. So now I only have two that I'm working with. It's only reading what's not green. What's green commented out is not reading that. So what I did, this is the former web Scientific American page. So I'm going to right click just this address. Well, actually, before I do that, my onesound.html, which is this, I want to create another one called twosound, or I could just call it 2.html file, save as 2.html. Okay, so now I got a second page, and I'm going to take all of the code that's in my onesound.html by hitting Control A, then Control C, then coming over here and hit Control V. So now I have copied and pasted everything. I can clean my code up a little by, no, I'm going to leave it. This has got the same speed, so if this speed isn't good for the next page, the reading, I would have to fiddle with these numbers to make it slower or faster. But everything else I'm going to have is going to be the same. Same buttons. My reading source is going to change. Instead of 1.mp3, I'm going to need to go with 2.mp3, which I haven't actually created. I pulled only a few of these files out of a folder, and I would have to dig in here. No, it's not even in here. It was on a DVD. So I would have to recreate 2.mp3. But here, this is what I need to change, my iframe source, because now I'm going to go with this Scientific American source. So I just carefully highlight only what's inside of the double quotes of this href link, copy it, go to 2.html, and then down in this iframe source, carefully go inside of the double quotes here, right click and paste. Okay, so now I'm going to open up a different page. And then I have to go to my OpenCNT and body, which is this page, and I'm going to have to change what the name of the link is, because I'm not going to have two links with the exact same name, because now this one's going to refer to the new page we're going to open. And that is right here. Study says carbon nanotubes as dangerous as asbestos. Scientific American, and then in the B tags I have 542 because that was a shorter audio snippet. I'm going to copy that little thing and replace it right in here inside between the beginning and ending A links. Of course I did not copy it right. Let's try it again. Copy right in here, paste, save it. Now when I refresh my page right here, I'm going to get the proper link text. Okay. This page that's going to have the new Scientific American web page has to be linked to OpenCNT and body. So li onclick style equals background color white, aref equals, instead of onesound.html, which was this first one, now we're going to 2.html. So I can just change that onesound to 2.html. The target is TV because on this whole thing, this iframe is called TV. In these, the iframe that has no border, I named SB, but then remember I didn't need it because I wasn't actually using the ID or name for anything. On click, this style color equals black, return true. Study says carbon nanotubes as dangerous as asbestos. Scientific American, 5 minutes and 42 seconds. Oh, I'm not doing that one anymore. Let's click this. Now we should get our Scientific American website, should pop up. And I see it looks like there's a double scroll going on here. So what my guess is, Well, I'm actually not sure. Let's see, we got some strange things popping up. I have no audio for it, but here's the scroll page. And it's scrolling just as slow as the first one. Let's say I want to speed it up just for the sake of showing you. Let's go to 2.html. Let's get rid of one sound.html because we already went over that. I don't want this to be confusing. Let me go up to my functions here. And remember, the higher the number, the slower, and the lower the number, the faster. As far as our scroll delay equals set timeout. Let's see, this one's the slow one. Scroll page. You see how slow that's scrolling. This one should be much faster. Well, it doesn't look much faster, but it is. Okay. And I could just do the same thing over and over for each and every one of these links. And this time they're going to have a little extra functionality. In order for me to have an audio MP3 file, I would have to use my Audacity right here. I don't know if I could read as fast as that's scrolling right now, but I could try it for the heck of it. Let's see. Inhaling carbon nanotubes could be as harmful as breathing in asbestos, and it should be it should be regulated lest it lead to the, see, I'm saying I messed up already. File, close, no, don't save changes. Even though this is going fast, you can still use your scroll bar to move it up if you need to move it up. So I'm going to say this, try to read this again. Study says carbon nanotubes as dangerous as asbestos. New research shows that long, needle-thin carbon nanotubes could lead to lung cancer. By Larry Greenmeyer on May 20th, 2008, courtesy of the University of Edinburgh MRC Center for Inflammation Research. Inhaling carbon nanotubes could be as harmful as breathing in asbestos, and its use should be regulated lest it leads to the same cancer and breathing problems that prompted a ban on the use of asbestos as installation in buildings, according to a new study posted online today by Nature Nanotechnology. During the study, led by the Queen's Medical Research Institute at the University of Edinburgh MRC Centre for Inflammation Research, CIR in Scotland, scientists observed that long, thin carbon nanotubes look and behave like asbestos fibers, which have been shown to cause mesothelioma, a deadly cancer of the membrane lining the body's internal organs, in particular the lungs, that can take 30 to 40 years to appear following exposure. Asbestos fibers are especially harmful because they're small enough to penetrate deep into the lungs, yet too long for the body's immune system to destroy. The researchers reached their conclusions after they exposed lab mice to needle-thin nanotubes. The inside lining of the animal's body cavities became inflamed and formed lesions. Carbon nanotubes are generally made from sheets of graphite no thicker than an atom, about a nanometer or 1/1000th of a meter wide, and form into cylinders with a diameter varying from a few nanometers up to tens of nanometers. They can be hundreds or even thousands of nanometers long. There is a greater concern about multi-wall nanotubes consisting of several reinforced cylinders because they're able to retain their pointy shapes better than thinner nanotubes. Scientists have been noting the similarities between the carbon nanotubes and asbestos for the past few years, said study co-author Andrew Maynard, chief science advisor for the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars Projects on Emerging Nanotechnologies, based in Washington, D.C. Maynard, who has been researching and warning of the potential health and environmental risks of carbon nanotubes since 2003, said that there have been no coordinated efforts to date to analyze the findings of carbon nanotube toxicity studies. He notes that technology companies have not found that the risks of using carbon nanotubes outweigh the benefits. They're excellent conductors of electricity. Carbon nanotubes can also be used to reinforce polymers to create very strong plastics. University of Michigan at Ann Arbor researchers are scaling the strength of nanosheets in a nanoscale polymer resembling white glue. Visually, it looks like a brick wall, in which clay nanosheet bricks are held together by water-soluble polyvinyl alcohol mortar. The result, according to the researchers, is a composite plastic that is light and transparent but as strong as steel. IBM has identified carbon nanotubes as important for studying electrical and optical phenomena on the nanometer scale, and the company has high hopes for the technology. Carbon nanotubes show promise as building blocks for computer chips that are smaller, faster, and lower power than those made of silicon. Phaedon Avaris, an IBM fellow and lead researcher on the company's carbon nanotube efforts, wrote in the March 2007 issue of Physics World. One of the most exciting developments in carbon nanotube research is the recent discovery that nanotubes can emit light, he added. That finding opens the doors to circuits in which standard copper interconnects are replaced by optical waveguides made from nanotubes, allowing the possibility of fully integrated optoelectronic circuits. Nanotubes are likewise being developed for use in new drugs, energy efficient batteries, electronics, and other products under the assumption that they are no more dangerous than graphite. But some scientists and environmentalists like Maynard caution that they harbor hidden dangers. Compounding this concern is the prediction that the market for carbon nanotubes will grow from 6 million in 2004 then to more than 1 billion by 2014, according to studies by a number of firms, including the Fredonia Group. A 2006 report from Lux Research projected that nanoscale technologies will be used in 2.6 trillion worth of manufactured goods by the year 2014. The Edinburgh CIR study, which will also appear in the June issue of Nature Nanotechnology, was very specific, looking only at nanotubes that emulate fiber behavior and their potential to cause a certain type of cancer. Other types of nanotubes could affect the body differently, for better or worse, researchers say. Maynard and his colleagues focused their attention specifically on the hypothesis that long, thin carbon nanotubes could have the same impact as similarly shaped asbestos fibers. If you get these things into the lungs, he says, they form scar-like tissue, and the body sees them like scaffolding, building new cells over them and thickening the walls of the lungs. The study is not intended to keep nanotechnology from developing further, but rather to flag potential dangers of nanotubes in places at manufacturing and disposal sites, the researchers wrote in their paper. There is an immediate need to examine how carbon nanotubes are being used and see if there's any chance that people are being exposed to dangerous materials, Maynard said, adding that no one paid attention to the dangers of asbestos until it was too late for a lot of people. Okay, so I finished that up. It's still scrolling because it's probably too long. I have to change the setting. File, export audio, and on my desktop I'm going to call that 2 and save. It's just going to call it 2.mp3. Hit OK. And it's doing its thing. It doesn't take very long compared to how long it takes to convert a file like a AVI to an MP4. Those usually take a lot longer, but this exporting this file that I just created, and it will automatically be an MP3 so I don't have to do a file conversion, is pretty handy. So I thank Audacity for creating this free software. And almost. Okay, done. File, close. I don't need to save the project anymore, so I'm done with Audacity. And now, let me go back to, no, we're in 2.html. In my body, here, my audio controls. Source is src equals 2.mp3, type equals audio/mpeg, and then this is an error message if you're using a browser that does not identify the audio tag. Your browser does not support the audio element. End of audio. So now when I go back to my OpenCNT in body and I refresh my page here, now when I click this, I should also have what I just read, that basically that page. It says 5 minutes and 11 seconds. It felt like it was longer.
Study says carbon nanotubes as dangerous as asbestos.
Yeah, and so it works just fine. So basically I just showed you how I converted a web page that I initially had. I had links, list item links on the left. It originally had 2 iframes. One iframe opened up an MP3 file while the other iframe opened up the web page. but there was no scrolling ability. So what I wound up doing is for every link, instead of the link opening two different things from the link, it's going to only link to one thing, which is its own web page. And in its own web page, there will be an iframe, and there will be some buttons and an audio tag. So each page will have its own set of buttons, its own audio tag, and link to the MP3. And the only thing that the link on the left is going to do of the main page is just open up that HTML. So I showed you the code for both the main thing that it has the navigation, and I showed you how to do the code for the extra web page that'll open up in this iframe with the scroll page, stop scroll buttons, and the two functions and the audio tag, and how to create an audio tag, and how to have an auto scroll, and how to speed that up or slow that down.